Okay, so I'm just going to make a quick video about what these people are that want to change their gender. But I'd also like to refer to this to people that want to change anything. I'm not talking about changing inner tubes in a tire from one brand to another, but that's also could be fringe if it's been commercially advertised. And it's not you just going to the store and saying, well, this is all they got and I need it, so you grab it instead of shopping around for what is a better inner tube or whatever. So what I'm trying to say is these people are fringe groups. Anything that's that starts out small and tries to make change in the overall populace, especially the way these people are trying to say that everybody should talk to them in a certain way, or just, they're almost like trying to like a police. Sometimes they don't want, some depends on who it is, you can cuss in front of them or yell, and some police that are saying, yeah, get it out and whatever. And then there's some police that are too churchy and they don't want any of that around, and they'll try to stop you from speaking your mind, which might open up, if you let them speak their mind, they might actually slip out stuff you need to know instead of censoring them, which is against the First Amendment. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is these groups of gender people and gender assignment and gender sexual whatever, changing their sex and stuff, it's all fringe group, and it's trying to change the core of humanity or the human race or whatever you want to call it. And of course you can say that everything that the human race does now that is part of the core has been fringe and has been accepted by society or humanity or the human race or whatever you want to call it. So we're basically all fringe, and that's the reason this is getting so much publicity, is that we know that new ideas, the problem is this is changing the sex of something that isn't making a decision on its own. It's somebody else. It's an adult. It's basically child molestation is what they're programming into humanity. Is they're trying to allow child molestation. In fact, there's not even children that they're trying to do this to. They're trying to, they're gonna get into embryos and stuff. And I mean, this is, I'm pretty sure this is how I believe we're all males. First thing born was males. This is, they got the argument for females that females were first thing because the only way for humans to be born is through a human. Okay, that's like chicken and the egg. What was first? Well, the egg was first. And because look at all the things that came from eggs, and they all were changed in the egg to produce what is now, a chicken or a snake or whatever. But it all came from an egg. It's not the chicken has to create a chicken egg. It's the egg changed, the embryo inside the egg changed and created a chicken. And that's how humans were made. Inside the embryo was changed, and it's what made made humans or people. I'm not going to say humans because then everybody gets into the argument, well, we're humans, what about Neanderthal? Anyway, people. I'm going to call Neanderthal people. Anything, I mean, you can look at all the races. We all look the same because we all have 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, eyes, and we all basically look the same. But we're like cats or dogs, or cats are like you could say some are tigers or lions or whatever. I'm not saying that there's a certain race that is linked to a tiger or a cat or like a lynx or whatever. But that doesn't mean I'm not saying you can't, because people will prove anything can be true if you tell them that they can't do it. they'll prove they can, and then they'll just create havoc and chaos for whatever they created, just to prove that they did it. But they don't think about the chaos and havoc that what they created is going to have to deal with. And that's the problem with people, is they don't think of the consequences. They just try to prove you wrong. That's all. It's like, you know, I don't know if everybody goes around trying to prove everybody wrong. I mean, religion does it. If you do something that doesn't conform to the religion, then you're wrong. You're following Satan or whatever. And it's like that with everything. Politics, whatever it is. Males can't do this, or females. And they're proving all this, you know, they're just going in proving it wrong, but in the end product, after they do it, it's wrong. But anyway, what I'm saying is these fringe groups are trying to change the core of humanity, and the core of humanity has been changed through time, but through necessary. But I'm not saying like communism is necessary, except that it was necessary to control. I think communism in China was first introduced by America to tell Chinese how to control their opium. They had an opium addiction problem in China back, I can't remember when it was, 1800s or something like that. They had a big, Britain went in there, and it was just selling. I don't know if China was. I don't know where the opium originally came from. As far as I know, maybe the Middle East, but somewhere along the line, China became addicted to opium. I think they was selling at one time, or however Big Britain got involved in it. But it was China. It had become a huge problem for them, and America stepped in, which America, I heard or read somewhere that they was also selling. It might have been during the Civil War, where heroin was used in Civil War surgeries to numb pain, and a lot of Civil War soldiers became addicted to heroin after the war. Well, during the war and after the war, because of the pain that they were, you know, you saw somebody's leg off, and in surgery you're going to need something with a saw. I mean, nowadays they got all this stuff. I mean, there's still people addicted to opium products. I mean, look at it. And but anyway, what was I got off onto a subject. What the heck was I even talking about? Fringe. Somewhere along. Okay, I don't know how I got into opium. Oh, communism. That's what it was. I was talking about how we basically introduced communism to China, and that's where the communism came from. So, you know, it was a fringe thing that they took on to control because their populace was so large that it took communism to control it. Because they had to use a martial law instead of just people making decisions, which there's so many people that they're easily persuaded by other groups, because there's always other groups. There's fringe, I don't know what you call them, fringe orbits, or orbiting fringe. I guess it'd be, I don't know. Anyway, so these, so that's basically communism. You could say, well, Lenin created communism. That's, you know, that's in Russia in what, the 20s or 30s, whenever it was, the 10s. And so these fringe, which now is trying to change the embryos, and I'm pretty sure that everything, religion and everything else, tries to get into the heads of children to get them to go their way, because the more there are of whatever, the easier it is for them to control. And that's what basically everything is. And if these people want to change the sex of something, which I'm sure that there's, you know, the porn industry, you could take the porn industry of wanting to change, wanting more females, because you know, they jump into the mind. They've been jumping into the minds of that, whatever is that fat guy with the black jet. I don't even remember his name. They made a movie about him. He was Hustler magazine, and he started out by doing that back in the 60s, is trying to get in the heads of kids to get them to go, you know, they change the way this, that, and the other. They'll break, you know, it's all subliminal. How they do this stuff is subliminal. Now, you might know it because you might not do it, and you might just be part of a, you know, it's just, there's so many different groups of people on this planet. And I'm not talking species-wise, I'm not talking race-wise, I'm talking how they think and how they control or how they don't control. You know, there's the controllers, there's so many different kinds of groups, and they're not out and out. They don't have clubs. They're just inner thought, and they might not even think that there's others people like them, but it is exactly like that. It's large groupings of people, and they grow and they shrink depending on the outward acceptance of what they do. And so now they're trying, they were getting into the heads of and the gays were starting to trying to get into the heads of embryos back in the 60s, because they wanted clubs of gays, but they wanted clubs of gays that were going to pay like a due. And there was people that thought, well, if we get enough people, I can live without working. And that's what a lot of this stuff comes up to, is they want to get to the top. And that's what everybody does. They try to move to the top, so they do less in life. They don't want to work anymore. And that's what basically everything, if you think about it, CEOs, what do? They have everybody working for them. They come to them for a decision-making process, saying, we need a vote, you know, what do you think of this? Or if they're a countering vote, kind of like everything is like that. The top of the pyramid is the deciding vote factor, basically. And so everybody wants to do that because it works up to not doing anything. And that's what everybody thinks. Well, if you go to school, you won't have to work. If you go to college, you won't have to work, or you won't have to work manual labor. And what's wrong with manual labor? It's physically demanding. Okay, it's if you you know, there are people that has been taken advantage of. They just work them to death, and they end up with problems. And there are people with physicalities that, you know, it's gonna, no matter what they did, the physicalities would probably affect them, causing range of motion and all that stuff. Because they say if you do something repetitively, it's going to change the way your body grows, or actually even continues to grow. After you think you've reached adulthood and you can't grow anymore, it'll still change you if you do a repetitive motion, say like lifting something off a pallet or putting something onto a pallet repetitively all day long. That range of motion changes you physically. And so we're basically biological robots that allow programming, and once we program, it's to get out of that programming. It's like an addiction. You have to do other things to get out of that. You know, even if it's range of motion, like doing something over, the people they get used to that. It's the norm, and their thought rests easy in that motion until it becomes physically unbearable, and they realize, wow, this was a mistake. Well, anyway, people have worked to not work. I mean, that's what they do. They try to work up. They think, I want to make my way up the ladder, so I'm not working. And so now all these people that are jumping out of the job force, these 7 million males that they say have just said they're not going to work anymore, are skipping all the work process, not going up the ladder and saying, we're not going to work, pay us to not work. Because that's what everything is based on. All these people, whether the military trying to go up rank, I mean, you can get kicked out if you don't get promoted. If you don't get promoted, you get kicked out. That's what the drawdown was all about. You had to get promoted to stay in the military. It wasn't, you couldn't stay a soldier. You had to work your way up the chain of command to where you do less and less. And instead of just saying, well, you know, we do need soldiers, they're saying, no, we don't need soldiers, and if you don't want to work your way up, then you get kicked out, which didn't make any sense, but that's what they did. But that's what society is. It's everything. It's politics. You work your way up. You get into politics, and basically you're not doing anything anyway, and that's what schooling is you get into schooling, and then you're getting out of labor. And so now people are saying, well, gee, wonder why these people don't want to work. Well, it's society has developed this, and humanity has developed it. It's not society. It was doing this before. You know, it was doing this back in tribes. The tribal leader would do less. Everybody else, lesser than, had to go out and gather food and build shelters. And the chief or whatever of a tribe wouldn't be, you know, they'd just, well, here's a nice spot. Or they'd have somebody else go out and find a spot that they trusted to find a good spot. And then other tribes, if they had a wandering, I'm not talking like indigenous Indians of America. I'm not talking tribes. I'm talking tribes anywhere, like Neanderthal tribes. And believing that people, no matter what era we were in, if it was Neanderthal or hominid, that my belief structure is that there are people on other planets, and this solar system has had life in it on other planets in this solar system before. And I'm saying that there are people on this planet that sort of have a, it couldn't be a physical tie, but it would be, because at first it'd be if they were on another planet and they had a lot of psychological I guess not cemented, if they were controlling on that planet, say they were a hierarchy on that planet, and that psychological behavior would be an energy after everything died on that planet, and then it would just be floating in space until it was accepted by something on this planet, which could be a hominid, could have been a Neanderthal, whatever. And then this Neanderthal would get this idea, you know, they might have just been walking around being a, you know, berry picker or what, or a hunter, gatherer, whatever. And then this energy, which, you know, once a certain populace grows, once a certain thought processing is trying to do better, you know, they're trying to gather better food, maybe they're trying to better their thing, then this betterance of thought would be accepting of anything bettering. And even though you wouldn't know what it was, then this Neanderthal would catch this thought of this leader, that they were possibly technologically more advanced than a Neanderthal, which, you know, you could, if you was in the end days, even if not the end days, if it was you know, the middle ages of another planet, they could be more technologically advanced than a Neanderthal. Then this thought energy would be accepted by this Neanderthal, who would then say, okay, I just, you know, they might not necessarily know what they were thinking or whatever, but it would, if it was them or their offspring, if this energy was on them, this offspring, they wouldn't be able to interpret it, but the offspring would grow into it and interpret it whatever way it was, into and it might even be help form this this embryo into something different. You know, maybe it was Denisovan or whatever they call it, Denisovan, and then it grew up. You know, it was a little bit different than the Neanderthal. It grew up, it didn't agree with the ways Neanderthal had, because it had this this intellectual energy that was different from them. So it broke off from that group, and that energy might have been larger than just that one Neanderthal, and it formed people in other Neanderthals, which created these denizens, and then they grouped together in the wilderness, forgotten for generations, because I mean, there's no history. There wouldn't be no history written of you know, we had kids that were kind of different from us, and they left, and they never heard of them again because they ventured into the wilderness, and this energy was concentrated in a certain place that attracted all these new people and created this new race, whatever. So all this stuff is and you think, well, that's a good thing that they, you know, that we wouldn't be here, you know, if that's how we evolved with these energies. Yeah, but they weren't changing sex. It was bettering life. See, what these people are doing now is they're trying to destroy a life instead of, you know, destroy what is, and they're trying to change the naturality of it is, because I think a lot of it might be that the beautification of, say, the people, whether it be Neanderthal, if the Denisovans were a more beautiful people, maybe their features made them more accepting, and that's the reason Neanderthals apparently bred with Denisovans and stuff, and maybe they bred with, you know, something, whatever. That's how we became what we are. And that's not really evolution. That's more like intelligent design. And that's basically how people were made, is from animals getting this or having this intellectual thought. And then animals created humans on every planet. That's the only way that we would exist on any planet, is from animals. And it could be that you know, that even though animals went through the thought process before, and they just kept creating, and they created animals, and there would be monkeys created, and then they improved monkeys, and this, that, and the other. So it's not evolution, it's intellectual design through you know, like embryonic change or whatever, but for the better, not for the worse. It's not a marriage. They're not trying to worsen, although people trying to stop stuff would cause a worsening of an embryo. If they was trying to say, oh, we can't have this thought, so we're going to have to cripple or destroy this. And so that's where a crippled embryo, a person born crippled, would come from, is somebody trying to stop, you know, maybe it's the abortionists are trying to stop people from being born because it's going to go against their ideas, or whoever, you know, a politician or a religious fanatic, you know, yeah, we got to stop this because, and so, you know, cripples or mentally challenged people are going to be born because of people not wanting this, or now I'm saying overpopulation. I'm against overpopulation, but we've been overpopulated since I was born. I thought, wow, there's way too many people. Now, I'm not trying to go and kill embryos. I'm not trying to say, I'm just saying, you know, stop having sex. You know, and that's what that's my change. I'm not saying we should abort people, you know, because of overpopulation or this, that, or the other. I'm saying people have taken it themselves because they've written into laws where religions or popularity or media or whatever, just culture groups or gossip, have said that we have the right to breed. Well, I don't believe we do, because not everybody should be breeding. If you don't have anything to better the human race or people, to better the race, not worse, not criminal, not going insane, not taking creating something for revenge like terrorists and stuff like that. If you're not bettering, which you can't even have sex and prove. I mean, look around, and you want to tell me, people say, well, these ain't my kids. You know, they might say it jokingly, but in reality, they're saying, well, these ain't my kids. I mean, they are physically, you know, through DNA, and they had, you know, whether their wife cheated on them, that's a different story. I'm just saying, if the wife and husband were not cheating on each other, and they had the kids, then it would be their own. But it would be different because of the way that maybe the change was upon them. And there was a big change in society, and that's the reason you can go through probably 1 billion people and not find one couple that has kids that look like them. You might find one couple, and that's what I'm saying. There's not very many people where their kids look like their parents. which is how, you know, animals are like that. Their stripes are a little different. Like a tiger, say their stripes would be different on a tiger. Basically, lions look different except their mane colors and that, this, that, and the other. And maybe a little bit physicalities, but they're basically almost clones of their parents. Whereas humans, they're not even close to being clones of their parents. I mean, there might be, oh, your nose kind of looks like your dad's nose, or your whatever, you know, your ears are like your mom's ear, or whatever. And but all this stuff is also brought on by they want, you know, the parents might say, oh, I want them to look like this, that, and the other, and that thought process is exchanged into the embryo, and that energy, if there's a right amount of energy, that will go into the embryo. And if there's a negative energy, it'll go into the embryo. And if there's a external negative energy, if they're around something negative, or if there's a negative external force against, you know, say them or their race or their country, then that will also change and cause, you know, whether psychological or physical damage, or physical change or psychological change to this children. And then they grow up and they're brought up through their parents' teachings, and then this energy will start to affect the children, maybe at a young age, maybe at an older age, maybe they wait till they're teenagers, and maybe a lyrics in a song or a movie, or somebody says something and it's like one of those words that you can read through a book, and you just read for looking for words that identify, and you can tell the subject matter by looking at a word. And so that's where the change starts in them, and their parents are continually trying to be them instead of allowing freedom. You know, guidance does not mean you become them. You don't ride their thought and ride them like a horse or a mule until they're doing exactly, you know, like a slave. Your children shouldn't be your slaves. You should be guiding them to become what they were born to be. Unless, you know, if they had the external force was changing, it was their murderers saying, well, I need somebody to murder so I don't feel as guilty, and so this children would be born to, you know, you got to instill in them something better, you know, put a more positive energy for them to work towards, instead of that negative energy that was put into them. Doesn't mean it is them. It doesn't mean that they are part of it. Like this gender energy that's trying to change the way people think, which I'm saying that, you know, the beautification of people, you know, the more pretty females get, the more whatever handsome that men get, and they're accepted. You know, that's why, you know, there's is there more gay because and lesbians because women are becoming, you know, more beautiful, but men don't want them because they're just they've taken so many. They just see in society that so many men get taken for money that they work for, and they just jump the stepping stone men to gather money and popularity until they can just live off what all these men have gathered, and they can live off nothing, doing nothing. And men are like, well, turned off to that, and they think, well, I'm just, you know, and then the men are getting more attractive to them, so they take them as partners or whatever because they have like interests. And, you know, I don't know if gays and lesbians are like doing, I don't know if two guys can say, well, he owes me alimony. A guy saying he owes me alimony because I haven't been working. That just sounds funny. But anyway, I mean, I think that I'm pretty sure that these, since they've legalized same-sex marriage, that I'm sure there's divorce. I've heard of them, but I haven't heard if they went to like an alimony court or anything like that to get money out of their You know, one of them said they was a male or whatever, the worker, and he was, well, I'm used to, well, now you got to get a job. Okay, so, but what I'm saying is the beautification of humanity is what, causing us to work less. Neanderthals were harder workers, and the more beautiful you become, the less you want to work. Is that how humanity is? Is that what we're becoming? See, that maybe there's a psychological and physical change that we can't psychological, or not we, but like government or religion, all these people can't fathom the reasoning of why they don't want to work. But see, the more beautiful people have, through ages, have they worked less? I mean, if you think about it, they're models and stuff like that, or used to be models. And now if there's more models that don't have magazines to make, you know, to pose in, because there's so many to choose from now, that they're just having to work for a living, and they don't have that instilled in the beauty. Maybe doesn't have a work ethic instilled into it. Maybe that's what the problem is. So it's all these different things. And the aliens, you know, if there's aliens that know about us and our way of life, and how basically radical we are with wars and killing stuff to exist, and our overpopulation and our pollution and all the problems we create by the breeding of other, you know, the humans breeding, they create their own problems. And so there's this energy goes out, you know, into the, you know, the universe, and if it's hitting another planet, and these other people are like, wow, this is the negative energy, and they automatically force off negative energy. And so over thousands of years, they've been trying to locate our planet, you know, or where this energy comes from, this negative force that's infecting their planet. And so they're pushing out the destruction. And so if you take the people at the core of, like, that are, you know, they're like family and religious, and they vote a certain way, and they're trying to do this, that, and the other in each country. And then the people on the fringe, they're all in this circle, but the circle, say a country or a race or whatever, is made up of the core, and then the fringe, the people that always change it, and the people of the race or the country look at them like, wow, you're weird, and this and the other. And then these people are like are the energies of these other planets trying to destroy this bad energy that this planet's given off on overpopulation, creating more problems, not solving anything, but just creating more things to say that there's more problems we got to deal with instead of the ones that we have to deal with, so that the government is as fringe as the fringe groups, because they're creating more problems just to keep from solving the ones they got. And because they're not made to solve problems. They're just made to get up, drive up the ladder, and not work. And basically, you can see that in Kamala Harris. She's not done it. I haven't seen her do anything. She just crawled the ladder, did whatever she did to get to the top, and not work. And that's what she's doing. And that's what Biden, I mean, he did. What, does he even give an answer? I mean, all he's doing is what fringe groups want. He's just basically the fringe. The fringe is leading this fringe administration. And that's how everything is. I don't care if it's the core, you know, like I said, everything is basically from fringe, but it's from a betterment. And what is happening is this fringe is not trying to better through destruction of say embryos, and they're basically trying to destroy the human race. So it could be this energy that is being absorbed by this planet and has been taken on. It hits the fringe group, and they're taking on this how to destroy this the core, and that the core of the race, the core of the country, the core of people as a whole. And it's basically the fringe trying to take over the core to destroy the core, and then they'll take over, say, political, to destroy the planet. You know, they're going to take over. They're going to take over to where we don't really need to exist. We can exist on another planet. Well, that doesn't happen you don't just go out and just create another planet. You're not going to just be born on another planet. There might be a part of you or something of you, maybe just even if you didn't even have a realization on this planet or anything like that, you're probably not going to be born someplace else. And that realization doesn't necessarily mean that it's you. You're just adding power to it by having assumed that realization as your own. You push it forward, and then if it's part of an energy that gets transferred to another planet, it might not be as big as you think it is here, and there it's just maybe an ear mole. You know, one person on the planet will have a mole, and that's all you'll become on another planet is just an ear mole. Your whole realization of whatever it is. It's like, because if you think about it, it should, this changing gender and stuff in embryos or whatever shouldn't even be a mole on an ear of another planet's inhabitants. That's what this is more complicated than these people are answering it as. Just like there's nothing in depth enough that they don't explain anything in the education system. They say you have to get experience. Well, experience is actually what you should have before you educate. Everything should be apprentice. You're working in something, you should be an apprentice. You shouldn't go to school and then get out and take charge of something where somebody has experience and they have to teach you. And then you're going to rule over them with the experience that they gave you. Everything should be apprentice. You should only go to school, higher learning, when you're apprenticing out and you're gaining experience as you apprentice. That's basically how I don't know. There's so many things that are so wrong that people are they're just left in the past by the new things and new people and new ideas that are being born every day. And not saying that they're good ideas, so that's 37 minutes of if you can follow it, hopefully you'll understand it. Because I can't, this isn't even an explanation, because each word basically needs an explanation. That's why they got a dictionary. But yeah, they have to explain each word and where it is in the explanation, because if you look on some of the explanations in the dictionary, there might be 85 different ways or explanations for one word. It's weird. It's, one word should mean one thing. It shouldn't mean a bunch of different things. And it should make a different word for a different explanation. That way you don't have these problems of, well, it means this, well, no, it could mean this. It shouldn't be like that. It should make a different word. I think the dictionary must be lazy people. Okay.